Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Tim Greenberg again with Under the Radar Gaming. This is me again on the left and Scott H on the right, my opponent. We've switched sides for Game 2 in the first round, Match 1 of the Jupiter Games October Kit Tournament. We are playing for the Reina kit, if I didn't already mention that. Scott is now playing the Runner, and he is playing the Professor. The Professor's really cool. The first of each of the programs in his deck doesn't count towards his influence limit, so he can run all the programs. And I'm playing Wayland, Building a Better World, and they build it by burning it down, as I'm sure all of you are familiar. Tag and bag, most likely to be an option here. I'm going to do things a little bit differently as compared to the last videos. I'm going to try to be slightly more objective, referring to myself as the corporation, and just try to do a play-by-play, as opposed to only making comments on like my plays and what I thought were good and what were bad. Try to do it from a more objective perspective, because that's what I feel like I'm good at. It's just kind of looking at the game and saying like, oh, this is what I would like to see happening, and this is what I would like to see not happening. So we'll see how that goes as as both players draw their opening hands here. So start out with a standard install, beanstalk. Any other identity, need a hedge fund to make the equivalent. This identity, it's the equivalent. So Ice Baby. Magnum Opus, great play for the first turn. I really like the Professor. I know he doesn't see a lot of play, it's probably as much play as he should. Really like the Professor though, in that you can get all the programs that you need. The rig builds a little bit differently, but I just think he's got a ton of playability, and with some of the newer cards that have come out and a little bit more options, you could definitely make him work. Third click, install on over archives. You never know what the Professor could have in store, since his programs, the first of each program doesn't count towards influence limit. Maybe a sneak door is going to get dropped down. Got Opus up a ton of times. So Data Sucker, run on R&D, flip it Enigma, lose that click, draw a card. Install 2 credits coming from the corporation side. First action is a test run. Let's see what we're going to test run. Yeah, I would assume it would be, and it is, a Gordian Blade. Just start picking all that stuff up from R&D. We see a hive. Two credits and then a restructure. So normally it would be pretty intense to wind up playing against what you see Wayland, you're expecting tag and bag, and it's a pretty interesting matchup. But with Magnum Opus on the field, you can just sit there and click for credits until you get up there, and you can catch them and match them, and then just start making all your runs. So, I mean, not a plascrete, but next best thing. Alright, so telling that Gordian Blade not going to be worth it anymore. Yeah, I figured in this matchup I was going to try to do a little bit more of like a direct play-by-play, providing input only very rarely. Just to kind of see what that does to the videos. I mean, you guys can post your comments and feedback. You've been pretty helpful so far in the last couple, so just try to get away from it being tough for me to cast my own games, because I know what's going to be happening. But anyway, so Opus is up. Hostile Takeover gets scored, so pretty much just a money trade going both ways. But now we got a bad publicity. One, not too bad, as long as you're not going to see a blackmail, but in the Professor, I mean, I really doubt you're going to see one. You could, though. Blackmail's been fairly popular, although without any of the combo pieces, I've yet to see a deck just run it, unless they've only run a one-of, just on the off chance that you're like, hey, I'm going to play against somebody who's going to drop bad publicity, so I want one of these in the deck and run the same old things. But Professor, I know, relies heavily on lots of programs and being able to change the board in a shape or form, but a slightly off shape or form. As in, things can drop and install over the other end, pull and push, and all those things. Runs the hand, flips. See, I think it's caduceus. It's caduceus or caduceus. I think it's caduceus. That's how I'm going to say it. Second trace goes to a trace of 3. And 1, 2, 3 is going to spend it. And we're going to see an Eli. And bounce off the Eli. Oh, I see an R&D interface there in his hand. So hopefully we see a run on R&D soon, just to see what that other piece of ice is, try to get that other program out, so that we can go ahead and start making that worth it, because with our bad publicity, we're looking at a Gordian Blade for 1 to check through that Enigma. So hopefully we can start to see some cards out of R&D and start pulling the agendas out. I see 2 agendas. Looks like a posted bounty and a cleaners in the corporation's hand. There's a hive. You know, we can start scoring those out before he gets a barrier breaker out, but let's see what the runner decides to do here. So we got an Omni Drive. I like that card a lot. I really do. I think Omni Drive is a good card. Scavenges the Gordian Blade over the Omni Drive. So yeah, it definitely looks like we're setting up to drop some pain here on R&D. You know, it's going to be free to get through that Enigma. It's just whatever ice is on R&D. So I think it's an installed caduceus. So we'll have to kind of see where that goes. So an NAPD contract, posted bounty, Project Atlas, a hive, and a power shutdown. So first click was a draw, second click was Diesel. Continue to draw when it needs. We're digging for that breaker, hopefully, or any way to search for a breaker so we can get through R&D once we drop that interface. I mean, at this point, drop the interface, get a magnum opus, and just go for it. Corporation's got to start making some decisions or you're really going to beat them to the punchline. There it is. There's a self-modifying code, so we're setting up here. Next couple turns ought to be interesting. Draws into an Archer. And with a hostile takeover score, that could potentially be pretty rough. Alright, so way over the money. I'm trying to see what we're digging for here. The combo. So I'm going to kind of intervene. This is where I make pretty much the dumbest play in the entire world. I have enough money, and as long as I keep a Jackson Howard here, I win. Because he's going to run, I'm going to just drop the combo and go for it. But now he's going to run Archives, and I'm going to click and lose my Jackson Howard. Therefore, will not be able to do the combo again, and it's going to put me in a really bad position. And I'm about to make pretty serious facial gestures here. I'm very disappointed in myself. But this is why you play, you get better. You know, I haven't played this deck in 6-7 months. Probably since the Store Championships at Jupiter, in last season. That was the last. Alright, so last click we're going to run R&D. We're going to try to see what that piece of ice is. So we see another Caduceus. So definitely have to dig for that Sentry Breaker. Let's see. Alright, so we're not popping the self-modifying code. Probably not a bad idea. We got to see the Jackson Howard in there. We're going to let it end. So the trace goes to 4. So 3 in a bad publicity. That's going to get us through. And we see a C-Source. So we're either going to get our face scorched off, or we're going to find out really soon we don't have the combo pieces. And since the first click wasn't playing that C-Source, the combo pieces are not there. So Corporation at this point stuck with half of the combo pieces that they need, but with more money and there's a couple barriers, needs to make the transition just to start trying to score those agendas out, force him to blow the self-modifying code to go get either a breaker that's going to get him into R&D after it drops the interface, or force him to break on that remote server. So installing the remote server perhaps makes the runner have to make a decision. What do I pop? Do I pop the self-modifying code here to go break through this hive and attempt to score on this remote server? Or do I let the corporation score out on that remote server? I kick my self-modifying code for my mimic. I opus up and drop my interface and just start running in through there. So we're going to see the self-modifying code is going to go away. There's a bunch of different programs. We're going to get the corroder. Corroder's getting installed on the Leprechaun. 1, 2, 3. Yep, so keeping his 4 memory alive there. Memory was a previous problem that I'd made the mistake of before. Alright, so we see an Eli. And he scores a posted bounty. Not a bad agenda to have down there, just to see what's going on. It's one of the other plays I see with 1-point agendas. I know that a lot of times, other than utility, they're not that useful unless you can score them out of hand. But at least when you want to break something like a self-modifying code, or you want to try to bait out a runner's clicks, and it can be later in the game, you can drop a 1-pointer, tricks, not clicks, and then have them go ahead and see what they're going to drop on the table. You can kind of start to gauge the rest of your turn. The downside is, if you're banking on it and they don't play any of their tricks, then you're scoring out a 1-point agenda. So it is a lot of paying attention, it is a lot of tempo in the game, it is a lot of observing your opponent's board state, your own board state. Some people would say it's a lot about knowing the person that you're playing against and knowing your opponent. Depending on the meta, it can be, but then again, your opponents can also use that to you in their own meta. I know that I've intentionally done things that my opponents are used to me not doing and getting away with it. Like when I first started, I'd sneak out blind agendas, and then I would go into not seeking out blind agendas because they were ready for it, and then after a certain amount of time, you just sneak out the blind agendas. So it's definitely an atlas down there. Corporation deciding, do they want to score for 1 ability to search or 2 abilities to search? And I think it probably has to do with the fact of, do we want to discard a card or not? But we are going to see that 3rd advancement. Yep, Atlas with 2. So this is actually, I would say, is a really good position for the runner at this point in the game. 2 of the 3 breakers that they need, and the corporation down to just 9 money with an opus. And we're going to see opus for all 4 clicks. So really getting set up, hopefully just waiting to beat on anything that comes down on that remote server. And yeah, maybe drawing into another breaker, getting ready. I mean, I would like to see the R&D interface coming out right about now and just going for it, especially with the clone chip. The ability to clone chip a self-modifying code. I know it might encounter the same issues we had on memory. No, because we have a Leprechaun. A Leprechaun can host the program, so we should be good there. So install, gain 2 credits. And we're going to see what comes up here. It goes over to the runner side. Not really in a dire position to score that agenda because it's not a 3-pointer. And even another 2 doesn't really put them in the position. You can kind of wait for it. Score's only 3-1. So just keep building the rig. Just kind of stall it out. I mean, the corporation's gone through a couple different scoring terms and only got 3 points out of it. So, alright, so we see an Omni Drive. And we're going to test run. We're going to test run for what I would believe to be is a Mimic. Yep, and it is a Mimic. Which means, if I'm correct, we can run R&D for free. Which is awesome. So we're in a really great position. Not only are we running it for free, we're going to get at least an access plus a data sucker counter. Runner's in really good shape right now. 2 Mopuses and the Mimic goes back. I probably would have checked the top of R&D just because it was free with the money. So it might have been a little bit of a misplay there. Because, yep, now you're going to see some. But with all 3 breakers on the field, unless it's a sentry that's going to be at a higher strength, I'm not too worried about it. We could always run the hand to get the counters in case it is in fact an archer, which I can imagine that would be what it is. Either you gotta take the chance that you know that it potentially could be. And that would be, I mean, that would be bad running into an archer right now. I mean, you run into an archer right now, you're going to be in big trouble. So draw, restructured. Looking at not a whole lot else we're going for here, just trying to get the combo pieces in hand, but with a Magnum Opus, it's like we're banking on, you know, rolling doubles for 6 turns here. There's one Scorched Earth. So we're just continuing to ice up that remote server. And the runner in really great position. 22 credits to the corporation's 15. Can start making moves here, knowing that they're going to be in a good position to not get that C source. They're going to be able to break that trace and deal with it. And at absolute worst case scenario, the corporation is going to go bankrupt to make it happen, and you got the Opus. So building it slow. A couple draws, a clone chip, Magnum Opus. Beanstalk bringing them to 20, so now it's 3 credit difference. And an advancement, so we're trying to bait this out. See if we can get the the runner to make a run here at this remote server, or if he's going to sacrifice possibly what I could only see being another 2 points. It's either an Atlas that's going to go up for 1, or it's an NAPD contract. NAPD contract would be rough for me to decide to go get, because if I run at it to go get it, and I wind up spending more money than I want to spend, and then have to spend the 4 to steal the NAPD contract, that, you know. And now you're in a whole different position. You run R&D, you see the archer get flipped, one of the points goes away, it's only going to be 4-1. The corporation's going to have to spend a whole turn doing that, you get a whole turn to go for it, so. Yeah, so it looks like we're going to see a repeat of what happened in the other game, which is going to be a clone chip for an Atman, and then the Atman to break. So the self-modifying code comes in, pays 2, and the self-modifying code's coming in on the Leprechaun. So the Leprechaun will make 1, and then the Magnum Opus 2, 3, the Data Sucker at 4, no memory going over, and then the Atman is also going to come in installed on the Leprechaun. But we'll see what we choose here. I think it's going to be an Atman. There's obviously way more options in the Professor, because the Professor can have all sorts of different programs. So, I mean, you could obviously see a Garrote come out. You could possibly see a Fem. Sharpshooter. That's a really, really good play. Knowing that you're going to have to spend a ton of credits to break through all of that, you don't want to put yourself in a position where the corporation can see Source Scorched you. So, just take the surprise, kick it. You got him to blow the agenda. Let him burn a bunch of credits for the NAPD contract, and just let it happen. But this is what I was hoping to see, so it was a really good position. We're going to go see 2 cards here. First card, there's either restructure and then perfect. Just a really great position. Just such a great play. So now we have to decide how much we want to get back in. Recursion is going to be tough now, having only used the sharpshooter, but we did see some points off of it. So we can continue to draw, continue to build up. Restructure and hedge fund. So that's putting us in a rough position. So either a couple turns of Magnum Opus, or we just go for the win. But going for the win right now is not going to be such a great idea. We are up though, but given that, you know, Project Atlas still got 2 counters on it. So runner's going to draw a card. Click 2 is a card draw. Click 3, the clone chip. And click 4, Magnum Opus. So now we get the ability to set one up, set up another big run at R&D, or try to continue more stabilized pressure on R&D by actually going in, clone chipping, and doing the whole process again, and trying to get possibly an Atman, which at this point can only really need to be strength 5 with the Data Sucker. You could possibly bring it in a lower strength if you set up running the hand a bunch of times. So an install and a blind remote. Jackson Howard or faking an agenda. I mean, I would check it and then opus a bunch of times. But all right, so we see a run on R&D. We use the clone chip to get the sharpshooter, break with the sharpshooter, using all the free credits and spending one to score a posted bounty and see an accelerated diagnostics. So that's going to bring it 4-2. 4-2, so 22 to 25, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think this is actually going to wind up being the combo piece here. I think we're going to see the Seesaw Scorched. Oh, both Scorched Earths on the bottom of the deck. On the bottom of the deck. So he searches. Not too many cards left, but God, that was in a good position for the runner, having both Scorched Earths on the bottom of the deck. That combo was not going to happen without the actual combo pieces. We're not going to draw into it anytime soon. So just going to do the math here. Pretty sure he's got it. Well, pretty sure I've got it, I guess. So going to 3, and he's got 22, so has to spend a full on 20. 20, so we see the 20 credits, gets the C-Source, spend 6, scorched. And that's going to be game. We're going to see a flat line there. So, super good game there, I'd say, from both players. Just absolutely fantastic. Runner got into a really, really, really great position. Was able to see a ton of the things that they wanted to see. Got their rig set up. Put pressure where they needed it. I mean, again, I would have liked to see a little bit more pressure at R&D earlier on in the game, just knowing that we have that clone chip, or sorry, the self-modifying code with the Opus. We had more money than the runner. See what that Caduceus is. You know, let the trace hit. Go get the program that you need. Drop, Magnum Opus up. Drop the R&D interface, start going for it. I'm not entirely sure what cards were drawn by the corporation during that time frame. I don't know how many agendas would have actually been pulled. I'm not sure how exactly important that is. In hindsight, it's just luck and it's part of Netrunner. But I don't know. Different games are different games. You just got to bring the same strategy to